Happy Monday. It's the beginning of another great week. It's the start of summer, which is really exciting. And I have something that I'm really passionate about and I'm excited to share. And it's so interesting, the more that as I have a topic and it's something that I feel in my heart that I need to share, I just feel like that whole entire time of preparation or the week before will be social media posts that will remind me of it. Or I remembered a book that I read almost 6 years ago that I feel ties into all of it. And the bottom line is it's all about starting. And I think that sometimes social media can be deceiving because it makes people feel like they're doing more than they're actually doing, or talking about something or needing things to be perfect before they start, or having everything laid out before them. We see it when an aspiring model is making the choice of what their future is going to look like, whether they're going to really go for this and pursue it, or if they're feeling the pressure to go a more traditional route and go to college, or maybe they just find out that this isn't what they love. But I believe wholeheartedly that a lot of times it's influence of people's voices and fear, and now you add social media on top of that, and people feeling like they have to share every aspect of their journey. You know, I can be really honest and say that in the very beginning of us having our social media, I felt like we had to put everything out there, and I just don't feel that way anymore. In fact, I think there's wisdom in not doing so, or being selective of what you share. And then add that to the fact that people think that of themselves as public figures or as brands, and it just has gotten really convoluted. So the bottom line is, I think that we had a really interesting Lyft ride home last night, and I loved the woman who was driving it. She's been doing it for a while. She shared a little bit about her story. In the midst of her driving us, she was telling us that her old boss was calling her, trying to get her to come back to her traditional job, but she had found that she loves driving, and it's opened up her world to other opportunities. And I just think we live in a really exciting time because of that. It's easier now to have a side hustle or a passion project, and if you get really focused on it and you don't become too hard on yourself, thinking that things have to be perfect. If things had to be perfect in our journey, none of this, and I mean none of it, would be here. A great quote, Christine Kane is just a huge inspiration to me. I'd probably been seeing her speak for, I don't know, it feels like forever. 15 years? I don't know. I've read her books. I just think she's great. I follow her on Instagram. She posted, which was perfect because I was already on this direction, you grow where you need to go. You don't start where you need to end. And I think right now in our society, people are obsessed with wanting things to appear perfect. Or we have such a strange sense of time. The reality is that time is irrelevant. The time is going to pass anyway. And so if you have things in your heart, passion projects or ideas, or even if you've put them off to the side because maybe it just wasn't a good time, it's never too late to pick it up. I am so thankful, I was thinking about this as I was working on the things I'd love to share, that I am so thankful that social media was not around 25 years ago when I started this, or even, when Jeff and I became a couple and we're doing it together, working on this business 20 years ago, I would have seen it as a huge fail, even though there were successful things happening. But I never kind of thought of it in totality, and we loved what we were doing so much, we just kept pushing through. And I didn't feel a responsibility to share anything to anybody in the world because you didn't have to do that. But I don't think that you have to do that anyway, or I think there's ways to share a journey and progress. Seth Godin is another person I've read, I think every book that he's written, if not almost all. And he talked about starting, the importance of just doing what you can with what you have. Even when Jeff was setting this up today, he was talking about how we just do what we can with what we have. Always, always, always. And then sometimes you figure out, you know what, if we had this could make this better. But it never holds us back from doing what we can with what we have. Seth Godin says, start small, start now. This is much better than start big, start later. One advantage is that you don't have to start perfect. You can merely start. I know of people in my life, either directly or indirectly, who are, if you were to meet them in a social situation, one person would say, I'm a designer, or one person would say, I'm an artist, or one person would say, I'm this, or I'm that. But the reality is, if you don't have the action, the daily action of moving in the pursuit of what you're really wanting to do, you can't really claim that. You really can't. Same in the category of model. A part of being a model is being your best, having the discipline to be competitive in this very competitive world. It's not taking pictures. Taking pictures is the byproduct later after you've done the work to get you to where you need to go. I believe that less is more. I believe don't show all of your cards. You can document things when there's something wonderful to document. I'm also not a believer of feeling like you have to tell people, hey, I'm in the works with this, or I'm doing this. Jeff really helped teach me that. He was like, let's just put it out there when we've done it, and share a bit of the process, but do it in a way that hopefully is more encouraging, rather than setting up a shot, making it look like you're doing way more than you're doing. This showed up also on my Instagram, which was so great. I sent it to Jeff the minute I saw it because I thought, oh my gosh, it's so true. And I can't remember who posted it, otherwise I would say this is where I got it, but I honestly can't remember. Your first podcast will be awful. Your first video will be awful. Your first article will be awful. Your first art will be awful. Your first photo will be awful. Your first game will be awful. But you can't make it to your 50th without making your first. That's the beautiful thing. That's why I love what Christine Kane is saying. That's why I love the process of development of models, because you start with potential and you, over a period of time, develop through this process and journey what the end goal is. But the most beautiful part of it is not the end thing. The most beautiful part is what you're learning in the process and how it's teaching you and what you're gaining. I have another person in our life who is really passionate about, I don't want to give away what, but it's an artistic pursuit. But she refuses to do the artistic pursuit with what she has, because in her mind she feels like it has to be this perfect finished product instead of putting it out. I love when they talk about that Apple is such a great example of how through the journey of Apple, they will put out a product and we'll be like, oh, that's great. And the minute they put it out, then they start to refine it to make it better. For some people, that's frustrating. For me, I just think it's great that you launch, you quit waiting. And that's an analogy for everything in our lives. That is how we should live, is seizing the day and doing what we can with what we have. So this book is a book that I read 5 or 6 years ago called Start. And I remember when I read it, it was one of those books where I was highlighting it to death, because it was just so rich in everything that I believe in, everything I needed to hear. And this was in the early infancy stages of Tribute, which is now going to be our 8th year. And this was so inspiring to me because it helped me to realize, just do it. Just do the show, and then next year it will be better, and then the next year it will be better, and you'll keep learning. And in the process, it will keep growing and keep getting better. And that is what happened. So I went back to this book. I love the little note in the little center part. It says, "No one aims for average. No one sets out for status quo. No one longs for ordinary. You just have to start." Those things happen when you don't start. So it's an important aspect of our lives. They reference in this book, John writes about this author who wrote a book called The Top 5 Regrets of the Dying, because she had worked in hospice, and she was in hospice care for many, many years, and she was there at the end of people's lives, which I just can't even imagine the profound things that you would learn in that process. The number one regret, question mark, I wish I'd had the courage to live a life true to myself, not the life others expected of me. Oh, I can't tell you how passionate I feel about that, because we see that in our world. We see young people talking themselves out of the opportunity to travel and discover themselves and make some money and learn and meet people that are from all around the world, creative, artistic people, because of the pressure of people in their lives telling them, well, is it guaranteed, or what's going to happen, or how many models are out there, or a myriad of other things. And it gets frustrating to me, because I just think sometimes you just have to start and figure it out as you go. This was the most common regret of all, explains Ware. When people realize that their life is almost over and look back clearly on it, it is easy to see how many dreams have gone unfulfilled. Most people had not honored even half of their dreams and had to die knowing that it was due to choices they had made and not made. That was Mercy. Health brings a freedom very few realize until they no longer have it. If there's anything in you that you have wanted to do, or that you've been waiting for everything to be in a perfect place, just stop doing that and start. Another part of the book that I really loved talked about patience. And this is what he said about this. We all get how average works. We're immersed in a world of average every day. If you tell friends and family members, I'm gonna stay average, they may wonder why you felt the need to say that out loud, but they'll never call you crazy. No one pursuing a life of average ever received a dire warning of failure from a family member. No one pursuing a life of average ever left a Thanksgiving dinner feeling like everyone criticized their pursuit. No one pursuing a life of average was ever made fun of by the other average people. But if you decide to travel the world to awesome, you will be. It's part of it. And I love the lessons that we learn being in a position where you sit and have conversations with people about dreams, about aspirations, about what they feel good about themselves. Yesterday we had a big model search out at West County Center, and to sit and talk to young person after young person, and at this point in their life when there's so much possibility, it's so wonderful to have these conversations. Now that I'm 25 years in, I've seen, sadly, so many people talk themselves out of trying and starting and doing something they love. So on this beautiful Monday in June of 2019, my encouragement to you is start with what you have. Don't feel like you have to shout it out to the world and blast it on social media. Just start doing and following the dreams that are in your heart. It's never too late. This is not an issue of age or geography, because let me tell you something, we blow all of that out of the water. Some single mom from Iowa who didn't have much in Iowa, of all places, set out to be a part of the fashion world. And then I met another crazy, awesome dreamer from Missouri. And now we find ourselves just loving that our passion is helping people pursue their dreams. So I hope that you do everything in your power to do that. Have a great Monday. I will talk to you next Monday, and I love hearing from you. Thank you so much for listening and watching.